Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show y'all how to make your very own deer antler headdress. So let's go ahead and get started. So today I'm working with a 5mm foam. This was Silly Winks foam from the Hobby Lobby or Michaels. You could use a higher quality foam, but I feel like for this that's not really necessary. And what I mean by higher quality is the Silly Winks does have some little pox marks and inconsistencies, but since this is going to be completely covered, I'm not really worried about that. I only use the TNT Cosplay, really high quality closed cell foam whenever a lot of it's going to be exposed and I want a nice smooth surface. Today I'm using just the base of the template from my horn headdress that will be available on my Etsy, as well as available to my digital download tier on Patreon, where for $10 a month you get access to all of my different downloads as well as behind the scenes content and all sorts of stuff. But I am going to make a little modification. So let me find, if I had a silver Sharpie that would be ideal, but I just cleaned up my work surface, so there's no guarantee on that. So I'm just going to use a red one, which I guess keeps happening. And I'm going to come through, and again, I'm not too worried about anything being scuffed up or any markings showing or anything like that, because like I said, this is going to be completely covered by stuff. Could have gone through and used some straight pins to hold the template in place, but ain't nobody got time for that. So just bringing this around, and you could make your own template or modify a different one, or just do however you like. So there's that. And now the way that I'm going to modify this is I'm actually going to extend this over by about an inch, like almost a square inch, maybe 1.5 inches long ways, 1 inch wide. And this is going to give us a little tab that we can fold over for attaching the elastic. So I'm just going to come through with a nice sharp blade. And I'm just going to start cutting. So there we are that is the base of our headdress. But I'm going to go ahead and do the attachment of the elastic first. And this headdress is going to be staying, I may actually do some heat forming just to get that to sit over the forehead. But let's start with the elastic, because once we have that closure done, we're going to be building onto the headdress in this shape. If you're a fan of thermoplastics, you could go ahead and wrap this in Worbla, or have just cut it out from Worbla to start with. So to do the elastic, I'm going to come down here and focus. Now I'm just going to lay the elastic in there so that it's encased, but I want this to come over and just be a nice fold. And so I'm going to do a nice glob of hot glue. Going to place our elastic. Actually, I want there to be a casing for the elastic, so I'm actually going to use a metal knitting needle and then just fold this over and glob it down. Ouch, it's on my flesh. And that'll give us a nice little tube that we'd be able to thread our elastic through. It's keeping the hot glue from traveling in there. So now I'm just going to kind of press that in, clean up those edges a little bit. And I'm going to go through the rest of the edging here and get some nice solid connection. And you can dip your finger in some water, ouch, to make a repel. And that way you can shape and smush and get just a little bit of a smooth edging. I almost treat it the way that you would like caulking or something along those lines whenever you're sealing up a project. Just smoothed down, I think, looks just a little bit tidier than not. Now, if we were doing this with leather, I would have just folded it, punched a hole, done a rivet, and moved on. If I'd used something silicone, that would have been way better, because then this would not be sticking to it. I'm going to let this harden up the rest of the way, though, before trying to remove our knitting needle. So we are back, and I am going to try to twist out to dislodge our mandrels. Just twisting. There we go. And now we have a nice little channel there. Set aside these clamps, we may end up needing them again. There we go. Dislodged off the metal wonderfully. Nice little channel there. So I've dug out a crochet hook. That's just really going to be a lot easier. Size or two smaller than what we were using as our mandrel. And I've just hooked around. Oops. And then just pull through. There's one side. And I'm going to come around to the other side and do that same thing. Now this is a thin, it's only a quarter of an inch elastic, but it has a lot of stretch to it, which is really nice. But that's why I am going to be doubling up on it here. So now we're going to be coming through, and we can tighten it down on one side. We want this to bow evenly. We don't want it to get in the habit of being like that. We want it nice and centered up. So we're going to take Hetty, turn this around, put it on the head, and this gives us two straps. So we can have this one that's coming across the bottom, as well as the one across the back here, which I feel like the more options we give ourselves, the more chance of stability we have. And then I'm just going to do an overhand knot where I've made a loop and I've put my fingers through, grabbing those tails, pulling them through. So there we go. And I'm making this for sale out of my booth at the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention this November. At the time of recording, it's upcoming. So I'm leaving quite a bit of tail on there. That way I can adjust it to fit whoever buys it. And then whoever gets it, you know, we'll size it to them, and then we can just trim off the excess and not have to worry. So now from here, I'm going to take the heat down. It's going to get loud for just a moment. And I'm just going to evenly heat, focusing on this front section. That's why I like using the glass here. So you can see it started to curl up, and we're just going to take, and careful because it's quite warm, and shape this, just hold it to the forehead and let it cool like this. Now it's not exactly perfectly centered up with the center line of the face right now, but we can just take that, and it's as easy as just shifting it over. But you can see that gives it a really nice shape to the forehead. You could always go through with your Dremel, shape down, you know, trim down that edge, but I'm not planning on having that be exposed. And I wanted to kind of keep this a simpler project, not quite as many tools necessary. But yeah, easy as that. We have it shaped down to the forehead. And then we also always do have the option to wear this farther back on the head to have the antlers, you know, coming out kind of that way. And that would be super cute for somebody, you know, have their bangs coming out in the front, or we have options here is the point. So, but I do like the way that little point looks, at least on my face. with my high forehead and high temples, I really like that shape. And we're gonna start thinking about the placement of our horns. Now here I have a couple of different sets of horns. I was actually going to include 2 sets of horns on this one. I wanted a super extravagant, neat, you know, headdress. And so I was going to position them a little like that. We have the main area here that I think we were going to do these big ones. And again, I'm just going to be attaching so much of this just with hot glue. It holds onto this stuff really well. And then these ones, which I actually scavenged from a pair of like child's costume. It had this armature wire through it. Scavenged from a child's costume from like Michael's. You know, and I'm kind of thinking, for this one, I'm just going to do the smaller horns. We could go through and just dry brush them to be whatever color that we want, but I'm pretty happy with this silvery tan that they came as. And for dry brushing, you would just use like a stiff bristled chip brush, dab it in some acrylic, remove the excess, and then like paint on it. Okay, so I've indented with the bottoms here where it's more or less gonna go, and they actually have little hollow bottoms. So I'm gonna get in there with my glue gun and just fill that with hot glue, and then do a little bit of a circle around it, just making a very healthy glob. That was a solid 3 pumps of the trigger. And then blurp, and just holding that into place. That was the wrong side. Okay. So I was about to give myself some super derp horns. So now 3 solid pumps, hopefully. Yes, okay. Just pressing that in. Now on this side, and actually come through, I'm going to scoop that and just press it. And you could position them however you want, really. This can take a little while. And if I had used less glue, it would have cooled down faster. But what's the fun in that? So just holding it nice and steady and stable. You could also, if you're a fan of thermoplastics, go ahead and use some Warbler or something, Terraflex from Tandy Leather, to make the little base to attach these. But I found I like hot glue because in the event of, you know, one of the horns breaking off, it's pretty easy to touch up. But that's entirely personal preference. So there we are with our horns, turning them one way and another way. So you can see that's how they came out. And so this is basically the structure. You could have done a straight across, you know, just a strip, and then have this poke through a wig. If you just want very simple antlers poking through, you know, your hair. But we're getting super fancy with it today. So we have some different silk floral. Here we have some really big, and I've been saving these up all year, like they're a little dusty. But I've been saving these up all year to, you know, every time Michael's has a good sale on silk floral and I have the budget for it, I'll go through and purchase, you know, just whatever strikes my fancy and get a little bit of, you know, an assembly together. Now these ones actually came with the horns. They were on the original headband, but I really liked that kind of apricot, you know, that pale peachy color. So these ones are probably one of my favorites. I absolutely love the shape of these flowers. I don't know what kind of flower they're actually supposed to be, but I like them. And then, of course, the autumn leaves, which are just my favorite. Now these ones, of course, everything that I get, I try to make sure to get half off. If I can assemble a, you know, or stack coupons to where it's like, well, you know, it's 40% off, but I have an additional, you know, 20% off my entire purchase. Yes. I'll go through and drop some crazy money on on silk floral, but I use it a lot in my costumes, so, you know, justifying my hoarder tendencies. So to come through, I'm actually going to be using some wire snips to disassemble these. And I save all of the little pieces, like all the leaves, everything, because I use these in some of my fairy belts. And I like the stuff that has a really like fabric-y feel to it, as opposed to the some of the dollar store silk floral that I used to use a lot had a very like plasticky sheen to it. And I really prefer this stuff. I'm going to give this a little bit of a stem to attach to. So cutting through the rubbery outer coating, and then there we go. Instead of wearing my hand out and wearing my snippers out, I just notch it and then break it. But that way we have a little bit more of a stem that we can always remove later, but it'll give us a really nice point of attachment. And then you can actually save these, the very flexible floral stems, for use in fairy wings. So again, hashtag hoarding. So I'm going to do that to the next one. Hashtag hoarding. Oh my gosh, I'm such a dork. I'm sorry. Yeah, so giving myself about 2 inches of stem. Just come through, breaking that off. So there's that. Now we're going to come through, and I just completely defoliate. I just snip right at the base of the leaves. I used to pull them off first, because you can just pull it off. But then I had all these crazy little stems, which, you know, we might actually do that. It gives us a little bit more of an attachment point. Whenever I'm using them in sewing projects, I'll just go through and snip all the plastic stem off, because all I want is the little fabric leaf. Okay, so now we can stack. We've got some different sizes and colors, a really nice assortment, and I like these ones because they feel a little felty. Just getting everything a little organized. I also have a bag of feathers here. So just pulling these guys off. And I like these ones because they do have a little attachment point, this little stem that comes off the bottom. I'm only going to rip off like some of them and then just keep them stored on the stem. Okay, so now we have our different decorations picked out. And we can start planning it a little bit. So I think I would like a nice big because I'm thinking like tribal belly dance headdress. Nice big flowers coming off the sides. But I don't know if I want them so far forward or if I want them up or back. Because if we were to come through and just attach it like that. I think it'll have a really nice dramatic, yes, from the side. Or maybe towards the back. Because that's the thing with a lot of these headdresses that I've seen, you know, other people wearing and stuff. They're so amazing from the front, but then from the back, there's just like, you can kind of see the hot glue poking through. So I want to avoid, I don't want anybody to see my little hot glue pieces poking out. So, personal goals. So would this make a good, well, I don't want that tickling my ear all day. Okay, so I'm going to start with the base layers though. So we're going to use, I'm just going to take a pinch of feathers out. I'm not entirely certain yet how this is going to be happening. Yeah, okay. Ooh, I'll go with, oh, that's a pretty one. And just a nice little glob, hot glue. Taking it, getting our finger wet while we place the feather, and then using that to just encase the hot glue. Ouch. Now I'm thinking like an autumn phoenix, like kind of fringe thing. So very fantasy inspired, very, okay. You could also just as easily use a modeling tool, but I'm a barbarian, so it's burning my fingers. And I try to clean up these little cobweb tails as I make them. That way they don't get out of hand. And you could use whatever kind of feather that you want. I've been collecting feathers from my chickens as well, but I don't quite have enough yet. Just as they defoliate, because my chicks are getting to where they're about to have a pretty serious molt, coming into being full-grown lady hens. And so every time I go out there to feed them and I see a nice fresh-looking feather, I'm like, yoink. Just really encasing it. And also this is going to help us to build layers up. So now we can come through that. Yes. Okay, so we're going to do this leaf over the forehead like that because I think that's super cute. So I'm just going to glob. 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 Glob, glob, glob. So now lining that up and just pressing. That's quite warm even through the fabric of the leaf. And so now in the little, there they went. Having decided, we can now come in and remove that stem. But yeah, just glob. Really holding it firm. And seeing this is why I wasn't really going to bother going through and putting in all the time and energy and effort to Dremel the edges, because I'm planning on having it all very concealed. one last thing that I'd like to add, and that's I want to sandwich these feathers back here. So we can actually just doing a little glob. I mean a little glob because we're about to add some serious layers to this. And smoosh. And I don't want to do too much, and I especially don't want to have it to where the feather quill is going to be like poking in your head or tangling in your hair. There we go. So just smoothing that down. Okay, and then one more on the yellow. Yeah, I lied. It's just a regular size glob. We're still going to do all those layers though. But I like to do overkill on these because I'd rather each piece be independently secure than one piece relying on the stability of another. So now from here, this is probably going to be the least stable part of all of it, but it should also be one of the points of least stress. And I'm doing a pretty hefty glob because I'm going to want this to spread. I'm going to take the largest yellowy red leaf that we have, and I'm just bringing it in and smushing it here as a nice little like backdrop. And I'm actually pushing this up and over the bottom edge of the leaf to encase that pokey bit, because I don't want it to get tangled again in her hair or wig, or you know, however whoever ends up taking this one home with them decides to accessorize it. So there we are. So now we filled in with feathers, so you can't really see as much of the leaf, but whenever you look at it from the side or the back, it's nice to have another little layer there. So now I'm going to let this cool down the rest of the way, and then we'll put it on. Okay, so please pardon the lawnmower like weed whacker sounds in the background, but this is how it looks on my head. Like super far forward. We also have the option of wearing it very far back with some hair coming down in the front. So there's that. It looks super cute, I think, with some big elf ears or something on. So yeah, I can't fit my antlers in frame, but I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm really excited to experiment more with this design. So yeah, some big old fawn ears. I do feel like that would have been really cool. So yeah, I may still go in and add in the big side flowers, but I also kind of like the tight vertical height of this one. It's especially, yeah, with a bit more of an updo. You can really do a lot of different stuff with this, so I'm very excited to experiment more. If you guys have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. Subscribe if you like my content. There might be some stuff popping up on the screen here, maybe, where you can watch another video, you can subscribe, you can check out my vlog, which is a lot more like personal tone stuff. Why you be blurry, camera? There we go. Please follow me on Patreon for, like I had mentioned, the templates, as well as all sorts of different behind the scenes content, as well as our monthly craft crates and different things. So thanks you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye!